So let's get started. Thank you for joining us, everybody. My name is Paul Salem. I'm the head of the Middle East Institute here in Washington, D.C. مساء الخير لإخواننا بفلسطين ورمضان كريم also. We are really delighted and very honored to have with us today Dr. Mohammed Shtayyeh, Prime Minister of the Palestinian Authority, to talk about the so many challenges facing the PA and the Palestinians. Thank you also to the dozens of participants, up to 100 participants who've joined us for this event, literally from around the world. All of you, I'm sure, know Dr. Shtayyeh's lengthy academic and political career, but a few points. Dr. Shtayyeh is an economist by training, having earned his BA in economics and business from Birzeit University and PhD in economic development from Sussex in Britain. He's held a number of leading political, economic, and professional positions in Palestine, including professor and dean at Birzeit University, president of the Palestinian Economic Council for Development and Reconstruction, secretary general of the Central Elections Commission, and as minister of Public Works and Housing. Dr. Shtayyeh was elected to the Central Committee of the Photic movement in 2009 and 2016. Prime Minister Shtayyeh, it's a real honor and pleasure to see you again and to have you with us. Let me also introduce my colleague at MEI, Khaled Elgindy, who will be moderating this session with the Prime Minister. Khaled is the director of MEI's program on Palestine and Palestinian-Israeli affairs, and was the driving force in putting this event together. Khaled joined MEI in January, and we're excited to have him lead this important new program. Many of you know Khaled from his years at the Brookings Institution, as well as his book, Blind Spot, America and the Palestinians from Balfour to Trump. Before I hand the floor over to Khaled, let me take a minute to thank Dr. Ahmed Al-Azm in the Prime Minister's office for helping make this event a reality, as well as to our good friend, Ambassador Hussam Zumlot, who most of you know from his time here in Washington. Lastly, let me thank the audience. We're delighted to have with us such a distinguished group of participants, former U.S. diplomats, members of the Foreign Diplomatic Corps, State Department officials, congressional staffers, journalists, civil society leaders, and many others in Washington and around the world. Again, welcome, Dr. Shtayyeh and Khaled. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Paul. And let me also add my own word of thanks to Dr. Shtayyeh for taking the time out of what we all know is an extremely busy schedule in the midst of a global pandemic, no less, and of course, during the month of Ramadan, to be with us here today. Thanks also to Dr. Azim and the rest of the Prime Minister's staff for making this event possible. Just a few housekeeping items before we begin. I would ask if you're not already on mute, please do so. We can just minimize the background noise as people come in and out. You know, we have 100 people, so that would be most useful. And then we'll be unmuting toward the end when we open for questions and answers. A reminder that this session is on the record as per the Prime Minister's wishes, and it is being recorded, so you'll be able to catch later whatever you may have missed. In terms of format, I'll start off the conversation with some questions for Dr. Shtayyeh, and then in the second part of our meeting, we'll open it up to questions from all of our, not all of our participants, but some of our participants. It's preferable in the meantime that you use the speaker view rather than the gallery view, since there are so many of us, at least for the first part of the discussion until we open up for the Q&A. In terms of asking questions, you can do you have a number of options. You can use the Zoom chat function to submit your questions in writing at any time during the course of our conversation. I'll try to draw from those questions as much as I can over the course of the discussion. Once we do open the floor, it's preferable to use the Zoom's raise your hand feature, which you can find on the participants tab. For those of you dialing in by phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9. Again, just unless you're asking a question, please keep yourself on mute. If we don't have time to get to all of your questions, you can submit your questions by email to events@mei.edu following the roundtable, and we will pass those along to the Prime Minister's office, of course, considering his time and his very busy schedule. So with that, let's go ahead and begin. I thought I would open with a bit broad. It's a bit of a cliche to say that the PA is at a pivotal juncture, but it's actually very hard to imagine a more difficult set of challenges facing the Palestinians and specifically the Palestinian Authority. A seemingly endless Israeli occupation, a Palestinian polity that is divided and fractured, the looming threat of Israeli annexation, a dire economic crisis, all of which have been compounded and subsumed under a global pandemic. So I guess my first question to the Prime Minister is, does the PA have a future? And if so, how does it actually go about surviving?
Well, Khaled and Paul, thank you so much for having me this afternoon. And I'm very delighted to see so many friends there on the screen. I salute all of you, Ramadan Kareem, for those who are fasting, and best wishes for those who are fighting the coronaviruses. I'm sure we are all doing that. Well, look, Khaled, this Palestinian Authority, the official name of the Palestinian Authority is BISCA. And maybe Tony Verstanding is with us. She knows the file very well. Lara and all of you, Zaha, and all the colleagues who have been really fully engaged with this, Hisham Youssef and Zahi and all of you. The Palestinian Authority, the official name is BISCA, Palestinian Interim Self-Governing Authority. The whole idea of this interim authority was designed to become a state on May 4th, 1999. Now, this did not happen. And we are stuck with this reality that this interim authority or this interimism become a permanent situation. And that is where our real fight is. On one hand, to really break the status quo. We tried hard to break it in many ways. It seems Jake is with us also. It seems that we are stuck with this reality that's called the status quo. The Palestinian Authority, the way we stand today, we face very serious challenges. On top of which is this non-classical colonial regime that is dictating its policies every day in Palestinian territories. The number of settlers in Palestine today are more than 720,000 settlers living in more than 220 settlements. And these settlers, they make 24% of the total population of the West Bank. If anybody wants to challenge me on the figures, this includes the settlers in Jerusalem. Lara, you are the expert on these numbers, I know. So this reality that we are in today, it is really a very challenging reality, because the whole idea of colonization is simply to erode the possibility of a future Palestinian state. This acceleration of colonization programs has been really designed in a way to incorporate Palestine into Israel and to destroy every basic foundation for a future Palestinian state. In addition to this, we face the threats of annexation, which we will see whether it's going to happen, but obviously it is happening. There are a few things that we have to watch. The visit of Pompeo maybe on Wednesday, and also we will see whether the Israeli government is going to go into what Netanyahu was calling for, which is annexation. So this is one important element that is really facing us. The second is how to keep the Palestinians behind the idea of peace. Palestinians have been waiting for an outcome of this peace process for quite some time, since Madrid 1991. Until today, they haven't really seen a real materialization of the process. More than that, the real challenge now also has to do with how do we control the security situation at a time when Israeli incursions into Area A is continuous, and also the measures that Israel is employing, it does also erode this ability to control the situation. Now, we also have a very serious problem because of the fragmentation of geography and fragmentation of demography. Palestinian territory today is very fragmented, West Bank and Gaza. And in the West Bank, you have Hebron H1, H2, and the rest of the West Bank have Jerusalem, a walled city. You have Area A, Area B, Area C, and you have the Jordan Valley. And now Israel has annexed Jerusalem and circled it, surrounded it with a wall. And the threats to annex the Jordan Valley, which is 1,622 square kilometers. The Jordan Valley makes 28% of the total area of the West Bank. The Jordan Valley is the vegetable zone for the Palestinian territory, and 40% of our water is there. So these are the kind of things that we really face today. In addition to the fragmentation of geography, you have also the fragmentation of demography. Palestinians, Palestinian refugees in Lebanon and Syria and Jordan and the West Bank and Gaza and so on. So this sort of lack of connectivity or contiguity between geography and demography is posing a very serious challenge to the Palestinian Authority and to all the work that we do. Now, in addition to this, of course, we have the split between Hamas and Fatah and the rest of the Palestinian factions. We tried to handle this. Our president called for elections. Unfortunately, the Israelis didn't allow us to conduct elections in Jerusalem, and therefore we were waiting for the Israeli elections to be over. Now it is going to be over, and we will see an Israeli government. In addition to all of this, maybe I should mention one thing, which is very interesting. Since the beginning of this peace process, we were calling for an honest broker. The recipe for success for the peace process has to do with the following. One, you need a clear terms of reference. It has never been there. And I saw Martin Indyk with us, Jake Wallace is here, most of the colleagues who have been engaged in the process. They're only in Madrid. There was a clear terms of reference for the peace process in Madrid, which was orchestrated by James Baker. And the rest of it, every American president wanted to draft his own terms of reference. Bush the son, in his speech, Rose Garden, 14th of June 2002, then President Clinton, and now Trump and his prosperity for peace and so on. So there has never been a clear terms of reference, agreed upon terms of reference, I should say. There was no time frame. There was no CBMs. There was no confidence spending measures, Yazahi. And the problem is also there has been no honest broker. This morning, I was on the phone with a European high-ranking official, and he told me he raised this issue of honest broker with Kushner, with Jared Kushner, and Kushner told him, "Who said that I am an honest?"
No problem. Thank you, Doctor, for getting back on.
Okay, so I was saying that when Jared was asked that he should be an honest broker, he said that he is not. And he said that he is there to conduct a deal. And I think that tells a lot when we speak about the recipe for success. Now, in addition to all of what I mentioned, one major challenge, of course, that we are facing now is our finances. The financial situation of the Palestinian Authority is really a very difficult situation. And I should mention that last year, 2019, the Israelis have deducted more than 1 billion shekels of our resources, of our taxes that Israel collects on our behalf. That has to do with us paying prisoners and martyr families and so on. I'm sure some of you will ask me about this. I will not go into this now. Now, also, I think what we are facing today is what Pompeo is coming to talk to the Israelis about. The most serious challenge that we are facing today is this issue of annexation. The annexation is not threatening the pillar of the future state of Palestine. But if you put all things together, that Gaza is under siege far away, Jerusalem has been annexed, and now the Jordan Valley, and that Area C has been used as a geographic reservoir for the expansion of Jewish settlements. These four elements, they are the main pillars of a future Palestinian state. So Israel is systematically destroying these pillars: Gaza, Jerusalem, Area C, and the Jordan Valley. Now, so Khaled, these are the most serious things that we face today. One last thing I should mention, which has to do with the two-state solution. Now, with the number of settlers and with this annexation, if it is going to happen, this is not only posing a serious threat to us. It does also pose a serious threat to Jordan, because the Palestinian-Jordanian relationship and the Palestinian state is a vital security interest for Jordan as well. When you erode the possibility of a future Palestinian state and then you continue to control the zone between Palestine and Jordan, that means that you are blocking a return of refugees and that you are really threatening the stability of Jordan on the other hand. So that is where we are at the moment. And I hope that, of course, Netanyahu and his government, they don't go into this direction of annexation. If they do, this means that all the agreements that we have signed with Israel are finished. We have signed with Israel legal agreements, political agreements, economic agreements, security agreements. This morning, the Minister of Defense, Bennett, has announced and has signed a decree that he is confiscating parts of Al-Haram Al-Ibrahimi in Hebron, and he is putting it in the service of the settlers in Hebron. That's a total violation of the Hebron Agreement. So all the agreements that we signed with Israel are totally violated. There is a serious breach of these agreements. There is a serious breach of international law, and there is a serious breach of a humanitarian law. So what we are facing today is really a very dangerous situation. The Palestinian leadership is going to meet on Saturday at 9 p.m. And this meeting is going to look into the Palestinian decision. It's going to decide on where do we go from here. If Israel is going to announce, we know that there is a difference between real annexation and announcing. The Israelis are going to announce. For Netanyahu, there should be no difference between announcing annexation and real annexation. So the Palestinian leadership is going to meet on Saturday, and I think they will take very serious decisions vis-a-vis the relationship between us and Israel. That will take us, both Palestinians and Israelis, Jordanians, the region as a whole, into a real chaos. I hope there will be some wisdom somewhere there that we don't go into this direction, and that United States stops Israel from really announcing annexation or going into serious annexation. That's what I wanted to open this discussion with you, Khaled, with these sort of elements that does really pose serious challenges to us at the political level, at the security level, at the economic and financial level. Now, of course, economically, we are facing serious problems similar to the rest of the world. That has nothing to do with Palestine only. It has to do with the whole world. But for Palestine, we have three problems when it comes to the economic situation. One, we cannot borrow money from IMF. We are not members. Second, we cannot print money. We don't have a national currency. And thirdly, we don't have reserves. So we are really hit hard with the economic ramifications and impact of this corona that we are facing in Palestine today. We have a recovery plan. We will activate it in a few weeks' time. And I think we have been doing very well in maintaining the situation. When it comes to corona pandemic, we had 2 dead people, 2 old people. We had nobody in ICU. We took very early measures when we closed the schools, mosques, churches, universities, and we did impose some sort of lack of movement between cities and within villages, and people have been really very cooperating. Now we started to relax the situation gradually so that we recover and we relaunch the economy from the very start. So these are the problems that we are in today. Maybe I should also mention the split between West Bank and Gaza is a serious challenge. And we tried to implement what has been signed agreements between us and Hamas. Unfortunately, it didn't work. And then our president called for elections. We prepared for it. Israel blocked our elections in East Jerusalem. Now we will, hopefully after this corona issue, we will come back to this issue of elections to regenerate democracy back to track, and then bring the Palestinian Legislative Council into play again and redesign the whole of the Palestinian political system in a way that is satisfactory to the people more than it is today. That's what I thought I should mention at the very introductory remarks for the discussion, and sorry for the interruption that has been caused by some technicalities.
No problem, Doctor. Thank you for that. Very comprehensive assessment of the challenges that you are facing. So I want to take these one by one if we can, and maybe start with the economic crisis that has been, of course, compounded by COVID. One of the key reasons that you were chosen as Prime Minister is because of your economics background, your expertise as an economist. Clearly, the COVID crisis has taken a toll on all governments and all economies everywhere. But as you pointed out, the PA is somewhat different in that it doesn't have control over its monetary policies, over its ability to import, and so forth. And so it doesn't have the tools that other governments do, for example, to put together a stimulus package for individuals or for business, for businesses. So my question is, what can the PA do? What tools and resources do you have to A, protect the most vulnerable segments of Palestinian society, and to B, safeguard the key economic sectors from collapse? And as a follow-up, are we talking about a genuine economic recovery, or is it simply a matter of mitigating the most dire economic effects at this stage? I mean, can we reasonably talk about economic recovery?
Yes, well, thanks, Khaled, for raising this. It's important. Let me tell you, with very little resources that we have, we actually established a special donation fund. We did call it Waqfat Izz, Stand Up with Dignity, something like that. And they collected about 60 million shekels. Not much, but it's important amount. We have, under these very difficult conditions, we paid salaries for the month of March and April. We will be paying salaries for the month of May, full salaries. We didn't deduct any penny. New Zealand is paying not full salaries. I think Jordan, the Prime Minister has mentioned that he is deducting 30% of senior staff and so on. So there are some countries who are going into this direction. We are not. And not only that, we paid last month social allowance to 125,000 families. Next Thursday, this coming Thursday, we will be paying 42,000 Palestinian workers who are unemployed. We will pay them cash assistance. And we will also pay cash assistance to the Palestinian social safety net, new poor people who have been entered into the database because of the coronavirus. And we had a deal with the private sector that the private sector will continue to pay salaries for 2 months. They did actually pay for March, they did pay for April. In addition to this, so we have 150,000 Palestinian staff, they got their salaries, 42,000 unemployed workers, and around 50,000 new people into the social safety net. All in all, I can say that Palestinian solidarity has shown a real strength, that people came together to really help the poor and the unemployed. That has been very important. People from diaspora, Palestinian private sector here, some people from the Gulf and so on. Not only that, but also we did put a package of loan guarantees and loans provided by the banks, $210 million from the Palestine Monetary Authority, from the Islamic Development Bank, about $100 million from Arab resources. So altogether, we are having a fund of $500 million. That is going to be concessionary loans or soft money at a rate of 1.5%. It never happened before. And these loans are targeting vulnerable areas, mainly tourism, small and medium enterprises, and so on. So we have handled this in a satisfactory way, I should say. Relief, yes, but also a stimulus package in post-corona time, whenever this is going to stop. These two financial facilities that we put together, relief on one hand, cash assistance on the other, and also loan guarantees as well as concessionary loans to the private sector. That is what we have done. And I think that the one sector which will be very seriously hit, we don't know when it will recover, which is tourism. Tourism is a sector that is really hit hard. Hotels will continue to be vacant for quite some time. Tourism will not fly soon. And I think that this sector really will be a target for our assistance. Now, more than that, I should mention to you that also, frankly, we have agreed with the Israelis. The Israelis, we have quite substantial amounts of money stuck with them. Tax clearance system with the Israelis has not been settled. There are so many things that they have to pay us. There is an exit tax, hundreds of millions of shekels. We haven't been paid back. So the tax clearance system between us and the Israelis is not settled. And therefore, we asked for an advance. The Israelis are going to pay us about 800 million shekels, which is around $200 million, $210 million as an advance on our taxes. So that is also one way. They haven't said no yet. They haven't said yes yet, but we are negotiating this and the terms of this. So all in all, the economic situation is difficult, has been very difficult without the corona, because unemployment in Gaza is very high. Poverty in Gaza is very high. Gaza has been under siege since 2007. and people there are really living incredible difficult conditions. In the West Bank, it's a bit easier, but the political challenge and the life under occupation as a reality, also it makes Palestinians not in control of their resources, and it makes us really walk in the same place. There has never been serious progress on quite a number of fronts because we don't control water, land, entry points, exit points, and so on and so forth. These are the problems that has to do with the government tried to adopt a plan that has to do with clusters development. Unfortunately, this has not did not fly fully yet. It did work in Qalqilia, Tul Karim, Jenin. We considered it as an agricultural cluster, Beit Lahem as a touristic cluster, Nablus and Hebron as industrial clusters. So we tried to adopt a new development perspective, a new development paradigm to try to resist, quote unquote, the reality that we are under occupation. And we adopted a strategy of diversification of our relationships, including disengagement from the colonial dependency that has been imposed on us by the fact that we are under occupation. Now, of course, again, the corona issue has brought us back to square one with these attempts that we were ready, we did plan it well, it did work for a while, and now our main focus is on the recurrence and impacts of the corona, whether it is as the social impact or the economic impact or the psychological impact. But more serious is what Netanyahu is doing under the corona umbrella. He is sneaking himself into the annexation of certain Palestinian territories. That is really, it will have a devastating effect, not only on the economy, but on the future state of Palestine as well.
Thank you, Dr. A quick follow-up on the tax transfers. I've read that there was some amount, I think it was 30 million, that the PA had accepted to be transferred, and that seemed like a reversal in its policy in which they had when the Israelis suspended the tax transfers based on this issue of the martyrs payments and so forth. The PA refused to accept any partial transfers, but I've read, and perhaps I'm mistaken, that they have agreed to accept a partial transfer. Is that the case, or is that what you described that you're currently negotiating?
Khaled, the Israelis last year, they deducted about 667 million shekels. And the Israelis are still keeping some money that has to do with us. We are taking advances. That's why I said that this issue is still pending. It's not settled. So the transfers to us is not really audited, is not accounted for. All what we are receiving is advances. And that is why this issue of a prisoner's payment is not settled yet. We have been receiving money as advances. We didn't accept legally and politically the issue of deductions. Is still hanging there because the Israelis are saying, well, this has to do with legislation that has been passed in the Knesset. The Israeli government cannot stop it. We have to abide by it. We have agreed with them that the money that is paid to us, which is actually our money, this is not money that Israel is giving us, this is our taxes. So the Israelis are transferring to us advances that is not finally settled. That is the situation that we are in today until since this has happened, since I took office, there has actually been no Israeli government in office. We have been there and we didn't have a partner to talk to. Not a minister of finance, he was a caretaker, not a minister of labor, something that has to do with entry of Palestinian labor into Israel. There has been 200,000 Palestinians working in Israel, of which 25,000 are Palestinians entering into Israel without permits. The security wall that Israel built to stop Palestinians going without permits, stop them entering into Israel, you ended by having no less than 25,000 Palestinians entering into Israel, some of them on daily basis, these workers. So the wall, the security wall, has zero security value. The wall is 100% political wall designed to confiscate or annex certain parts of the West Bank. Back to the issue with the Israelis, as I said, there has never been in the last year, Israel went from one election to the other, 3 elections, and only next Thursday that Israel will have in a year time for the first time a government that we can talk to. It's not only that we don't have a partner for peace, it's not that we don't have a partner for labor, we don't have a partner for finances, we don't have a partner for anything. It's just simply we have to deal with the military governor, and the military governor, he is bringing back military regime into the West Bank. It was him, the military governor, who issued a statement or a military order saying that banks have to be legally responsible if they keep bank accounts for the Palestinian prisoners. And then this has been, creating an incredible chaos in the whole of the banking system for the last 3-4 days, because we had 1 million Palestinians who went through Israeli prisons since 1967. And these people had families, and some of the bank accounts, it has to do with their families, it has to do with their savings, it has to do with their deposits, transfers from their relatives here and there and so on. So anyhow, what I'm saying is that I don't know about this coming Israeli government, whether there will be partners for anything, but obviously this government is a government for annexation. It's not going to be a government for peace. I don't think we will have a partner for peace when it comes to this sort of coalition. This coalition is not for peace, is not for anything but for annexation.
Thank you, Doctor. And if I could, you mentioned Gaza. What sorts of things is your government doing? Is there coordination with Gaza on, for example, providing PPE or medical supplies or masks or anything to the Gaza Strip? What is the level of current cooperation between the two authorities?
Well, there is a legitimate authority and there is a de facto authority. But we are responsible for Gaza under any circumstances. Khalid, every single assistance that we have received, we did send Gaza whatever Gaza needs. Just example, we received a shipment from China. We sent Gaza whatever they needed. We don't look at Gaza as a separate entity, of course. We look at Gaza as an integral part of the Palestinian territory in the same way that we look at Jerusalem, we look at Hebron, Jenin, Nablus, and so on and so forth. So we received assistance from Turkey, 50% went to Gaza. We received assistance from Egypt, part of it went to Gaza. We received assistance from China, whatever Gaza needed, we sent to Gaza. Unfortunately, all of a sudden, we realized that Gaza, Hamas, is sending test cases to Israel. The first 35 corona cases, they were sent to Israeli hospitals without any coordination with us. We were surprised to realize that. But later on, of course, we were all taken by surprise. Nobody was ready for this corona, as you know. But every single assistance that we received, we sent 7 trucks of medical supplies to Gaza 20 days ago, and recently whatever Gaza needs. So we are responsible for Gaza, every single thing that we do. One. Secondly, Khalid, we pay 40 million shekels every month for electricity supply. We pay 35 million shekels for water supplies. We pay salaries every month for 75,000 Palestinians who work for the authority, security and civil. We pay for 81,000 Palestinian families who are in our social safety net. These people, they receive financial assistance on monthly basis, sometimes every 3 months. We pay 60% of the money. The European Union, they pay 40% of the money. So all in all, what we spend in Gaza is $1.2 billion every year. And what do we really get out of Gaza? Literally nothing. 9 million shekels, all what our Minister of Finance was telling me that the tax with Gaza has been no more than 9 million shekels. Really nothing, $3 million or less, $2.8 million. Anyhow, but to stress the point, we are responsible for Gaza. I did correct the salaries when we took office. The salaries between West Bank and Gaza were not the same. We're correcting it. We are still doing some work. Omar Sha'ban is with us here, and he can correct me if I'm wrong. And we will always act that we are one territory, one people, even though we are, of course, living under the split. But I hope that time will allow very soon that we go into elections, because it is not only the door opening for ending the split, but also for me, more important is to bring democracy back to track. And we have really a legislative body in which we need the checks and balances for all what the executive organ is doing. And that is really, this has been absent since 2007. It's something that we will fight for, to bring Gaza back into under one umbrella, and to bring all Palestinians under one umbrella. This ultimate deal of the century has brought us closer, and this corona has brought us more closer. And I hope that we will open a new page. Hamas, by the way, is going to be invited for the Saturday meeting. Hamas and Jihad and all political factions, they were invited 3 months ago or 2 months ago for this meeting. And I think Saturday meeting, they will be invited to join the meeting.
Do you expect them to participate in that meeting?
Yes, they already expressed interest and they will be participating, yes.
Okay. I want to turn to the issue of annexation and the deal of the century, and then I'm going to open it up to questions from our other participants. I know that the questions are starting to come in, and I'm keeping a running tab of these questions, and I'm going to ask people to pose their own questions. But first, I want to ask you, Doctor, about annexation. Obviously, we have an Israeli government that's coming in. One of the pillars of the deal between Gantz and Netanyahu is basically to allow a vote on annexation. We know that the United States is not opposed to annexation. If anything, the United States, the Trump administration seems to be not only giving a green light, but kind of nudging Israel in the direction of annexation. And you've talked about how the threat of annexation, if they follow through, that the response from the Palestinians will be to cancel existing agreements, that will render all previous agreements null and void. If you could tell us what that means in practice, specifically with regard to security coordination with Israel, which, as you know, in the past, President Abbas has described as a sacred responsibility. If the day after annexation happens, and it is in the context of the so-called deal of the century and the map that they are now working on, and the PA is seen as continuing to with security coordination, does that then imply the PA's complicity in, or somehow acquiescence in that annexation plan and the so-called deal of the century?
Well, look, Khaled, unfortunately, the debate in Israel today is not about those who are for peace and those who are for annexation. The debate in Israel today is what to annex. Gantz was asking Netanyahu to annex the settlement blocks, which is, Dr. Zaha is here and she was with us as a legal advisor for the negotiations. She knows that. When we asked Livni, what is it that you mean by settlement blocks? Madame Livni, she took a piece of paper and she read to us that any settlement close to Israel is a block. Any settlement that has a character of, or the administration of a municipality, that is a block. That's 8 of these are in the West Bank, including Ariel, Ma'ali Adumim, and these big settlements. And then more than 2 settlements is a block. When you look at the map, the settlement blocks that Gantz was asking Netanyahu to annex, it actually makes maybe 20% of the West Bank. Netanyahu wanted to annex the Jordan Valley. As I mentioned earlier, the Jordan Valley is 28% of the West Bank, 1,622 square kilometers. Now, by all means, that is an end to two-state solution. Now, if I want to take the debate with you on demographic issues, it means that today, 2020, Palestinians between River Jordan and Mediterranean Sea, we are more by 300,000 more than Israeli Jews. Palestinian, Muslim, and Christians inside West Bank, Gaza, and inside Israel, we are more when it comes to demographies. So Israel is actually destroying its own, what they are calling for, whether on Jewishness of the state or the democratic character of the state. So this is one. The other important issue that has to do with Jordan. This annexation is a serious threat to the security of Jordan. And for us, what does it really mean? It means that our relationship with Israel is dictated on 4 angles: security, economic, political, and legal. Legal, Yasser Arafat and Ishaq Rabin, they exchanged letters of recognition. 9th of September 1993. We recognized Israel within secure borders as a state. Israel actually never recognized us. Israel recognized the PLO as a sole legitimate representative to the Palestinian people. But recognition didn't go to recognition of territory and sovereignty and the state and so on. So this is under question, the legality or the legal recognition between the 2 parties. One. Second, security, as you mentioned, we have security agreement. Israel has been violating constantly this security agreement. The security agreement, it does not allow Israel to go into Area A. And we see Israeli incursions into Area A nearly on weekly basis. I don't want to say on daily basis. So therefore, Israel has also eroded and violated the security agreement. Political agreement, remember one thing, that the whole Oslo process, and I think I have seen Dan Kertzer here among the group, the whole of Oslo process was designed to enlarge, or what they called incremental withdrawal of Israeli army, so that at the end of the day, all areas become Area A, i.e. under full Palestinian sovereignty. What Israel has been doing is totally the opposite. Instead of enlarging the domain of the Palestinian Authority, the Palestinian Authority's domain is shrinking every day by the fact that more settlers are there and more land is expropriated and annexed and so on. So therefore, I think on Saturday, we are going to say the following, that since Israel is not respecting these agreements cannot be respected unilaterally, which means that all the 4 angles or the 4 issues of agreements, political, economic, security, as well as legal, it will be really under serious revision. And I think we already had Palestinian National Council resolution that did call for a total cancellation of these agreements. We didn't do it yet. I think the discussion on Saturday will be focused really in a total cancellation of these agreements if Israel is going to go into that direction, which means that starting with security or what else, there will not be any security coordination starting Saturday.
So as of the time of the decision, not at the time that if and when annexation is voted on in Israel, you're saying that security coordination will come to an end?
We are not going to wait for the annexation. For us, if they announce it Wednesday or Thursday, that is a game changer for us.
Okay, and that will be based on a consensus of the factions in Saturday's meeting?
That is my guess. I think all factions will go into that direction, and the discussion will be focused on this issue, in particular, obviously, the security coordination and so on. But there are many issues that we need to settle. Khaled, the issue for us, look, for how long can we really wait? There is no hope. What Israel will do with annexation, it will really kill the hope. It will kill international consensus on two states. It will kill the hope for peace in the future, and it will also end the whole of Oslo process will be over. I don't think that anyone can claim that there is anything left of the Oslo process if Israel is going into that direction. I think that's the end of everything if they are really going to go there. And therefore we cannot simply stay blindly and claim as if we don't see reality on the ground. Reality on the ground is eroded. A possibility of a future Palestinian state is eroded every day. We have to take things in a totally different direction, including this issue of relationship with Israel. We have to redesign it, and we have to also call, as our president has done. He did call for an international conference, and that this sort of bilateral relationship, unfortunately, it didn't bring peace to us. It did bring an authority that is handicapped in a way with all these Israeli measures, but I think we need to go beyond the status quo.
Okay, good. I'm eager to get to our other participants' questions. I'm going to start with Martin Indyk, who's been waiting patiently with his hand up first. So Martin, if you want to unmute yourself and go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you, Khaled. Prime Minister Shtayyeh, it's very good to see you looking well despite all of the circumstances. I listened carefully to what you say is going to unfold. And I just want to clarify one thing and then ask the question about it. The Israeli process of annexation will not get underway, as I understand it, until July 1st, after which there will be a discussion in the Israeli cabinet about this. And there will, of course, be a negotiation with the Sykes-Picot border committee of Dermer and Friedman, who are determining the borders of your state as we talk here, about how to define settlements and the territory that supposedly will be annexed. So there's going to be a process on the other side that can be influenced. But what I heard you say was that you're going to take decisions before that to cancel. And I just want to clarify exactly when the cancellation of the agreements that you're expecting would take place. Now, my question is, you know, we have a saying here in America, you know it well because you know America, that you can't beat something with nothing. And I am wondering, you know, whether you don't need to come up with something a little different to the past practice of threatening to collapse the Palestinian Authority and cancel security coordination, which we frankly have heard over and over and over again. I don't know how many decisions have been taken, and in fact, nothing really happens. So there's a credibility problem on that score. And I wonder whether there isn't time for some creative thinking, and in that regard, to recognize that on the Israeli side, you have a new defense minister coming in, a new foreign minister, Gantz and Ashkenazi, who are in and of the national security establishment. They appreciate the security coordination with the Palestinian security forces. They respect the Palestinian Authority. It's a very different grouping there. They don't have control over Netanyahu, but they have influence, and they certainly have influence as defense minister. Gantz has influence over what happens in the Palestinian territories. So I wonder whether it's not time for you to be thinking about reaching out to him and to Ashkenazi and seeing whether you can't help each other, help him to resist the annexation and have him help you to ensure that the Palestinian people at this time of crisis are able to function more in a better way.
Well, Martin, thank you so much. It's good to see you, and you look well, touch wood, and we work together, and I know how much time you invested yourself in this process. Unfortunately, your effort, our effort, has evaporated or gone with the wind, unfortunately. Now, let me be very frank with you. When Dr. Ahmed asked me to do this, and with Khaled and Paul, I said, look, I will be very frank. This is, I looked at the list of participants. You're all dear friends, and let me really be frank with you. What you have suggested is something that we have done. We actually spoke to Gantz when he was negotiating with Netanyahu to form the coalition. And Gantz did not object. So the agreement, and he unfortunately, he left a veto, or he disarmed himself from a veto when it comes to annexation. He armed himself with so many vetoes, but when it comes to annexation, he did disarm himself from that veto. And therefore, he said to one person who did convey a message to us that Palestinian Authority does not dictate my political agenda. Unfortunately. Now, so we know that there is a difference between him and Netanyahu. But as I said, unfortunately, the debate between both of them was not to annex or to annex. The debate was what to annex. What to annex. And it seems, and you know very well, that the Jordan Valley, even from the early days of Yigal Alon and the Alon plan, so the Jordan Valley, in a way, does enjoy some sort of consensus among the different Israeli political. It was the Likud who never wanted to annex the Jordan Valley, because the Likud wanted to annex all of the Palestinian territory. And now things are different. We did send a letter. We did send a letter to Netanyahu. We did send a letter to Gantz. And we are telling them, look, if you are going really to go there, this is a very serious issue. It's a game changer, and we will not stay silent on this issue at all. We sent letters to the quartet, Martin, to all the quartet members. It's not 3+1 or 4-1. No, we sent letters to the quartet, to 4 of them, yes, telling them, warning them that this is going to be a very serious issue. And I hope that this is not going to happen. But still, you asked me to differentiate between announcing and implementation. unfortunately, we know that they already agreed upon. It is in the political platform of the coalition. So it is there. And now, and you know, Martin, more than anybody else, you know that Netanyahu, who is a permanent friend of yours, you know the kind of tricks he will play with the American administration. You know that. What I think, frankly, even if Pompeo will ask him not to annex, I think Netanyahu will do it, because he knows that United States is busy with the following 4 or 5 things: Corona, the economy, China, elections. So the administration does not have much time to spend on this Palestine-Israel issue. I think Netanyahu, by the time we reach November, I think he will annex, because he wants to seize the opportunity that Trump cannot say no to him, because he will jeopardize his constituency, and then he will take advantage of the map. Netanyahu can say, well, look, you see, you offered a map. All what I'm doing is I am actually taking action in full harmony with the map that you have presented to. Of course, the Americans will say, well, look, you see, you have to qualify it. It has to be agreed upon, and so on and so forth. So what I'm saying, Martin, is that announcing and doing with Netanyahu is the same. Now, if between announcing and implementation, Netanyahu is going to say, well, look, I decided not to annex, we will reverse our measures. That's what I'm saying.
Thank you, Doctor. We have about 20 minutes left, and by my count, about 12 individuals with questions. So I'm going to take these in the order that I have on my list. I'm going to start with Adam from the New York Times, and then we'll go to Khaled Burr and Felicia from the Wall Street Journal.
Hi, Dr. Shtayyeh. This is Adam from the New York Times. Thank you for your remarks. Just 2 quick questions. First, you mentioned that over the weekend that you were working on a solution with the committee for the banking issue and the payments to the prisoners. Is there a solution? And if there isn't, what are the possible solutions that are being discussed? Second question is, some people would say that the office of the president often wields significant influence over the prime minister's office and sometimes undermines its ability to operate independently. Have you ever felt concerned that the Palestinian president's office is intervening in your office's work and not giving you the full ability to sort of carry out your operations? Thank you.
Well, look, Adam, I work for the president. I'm not here to compete. He appointed me. He is my reference. I am accountable to him. So this is something that's out of my mind. I report to him on daily basis. We're one team when it comes to all of this. So, and I'm a member of the Photic Central Committee, where he actually is the president of the Photic Central Committee. So there isn't really any sort of any distance, any political distance, any personal distance, nothing really. We're in full harmony. I work under his instructions, and also we have meetings of the Photic Central Committee, and I report to the committee as a whole as well. So on that issue, please rest assured that we are all as we say in Arabic, على قلب رجل واحد, on one single, on the heart of one single person. Yes. One. Second, the issue of the banks. Look, let me just bring to you the following issue of these prisoners. Look, what we do with the prisoners is actually social allowance. What we do with the martyrs is we pay money to help orphans. These people are orphans. We pay, we take care of kids of a person whom his father was killed, or a person whom his father is serving X number of years in Israeli prisons and so on. What options do we have? either we are a responsible government or we are not. If we don't do this, then these people become victims of radicalism. These people are victims themselves of occupation. And if we don't do this, then what are we doing? Look, there is also something yesterday in a village near Ramallah called Kubar. The Israelis destroyed a house of a Palestinian who is under investigation or in jail. Regardless of what he did, listen to me. What sort of problem? Why do I consider collective punishment on the whole family? His father is now homeless. His mother is homeless. His brother is homeless. All those who live in that house are homeless now. If one person is in jail, you don't go into collective punishment of these people. This man has kids. Who takes care of his kids? Shall we leave it to Iran? Or shall we leave it to Daesh? Or shall we leave it to whom? And one important thing, these payments for the prisoners, it has been agreed upon with the Israelis. Why is it that Israel is raising it now? This is something that has been happening since the establishment of the authority. Let me tell you one more thing. Just last week, the Israeli military governor calling our Minister of Civil Affairs, asking him to pay the canteen. We pay 2.2 million shekels to the canteen of all the prisoners. What does canteen? Prisoners, they buy cigarettes, Nescafe, this chocolate, whatever, and so on. Now, the Israelis are urging us, why didn't you pay yet? They are asking us, we pay through officially their official banks. So why is it that Israel is accepting that we pay canteen to the prisoners, and Israel does not accept that we pay social allowance to the victims of or to the orphans of the martyr families, or to the kids of a prisoner, and so on and so forth? So now the banks, let me tell you one example. Let's assume that you have a bank account. You are doing business, you have a supermarket, you have a bank account. And then the Israelis come and arrest you and put you in jail. What happens to your bank account? They want you to close it. What happens to the bank account of your brother, your sister, your mother, your father, and so on? You are talking about 1 million Palestinians who have been in Israeli prisons since 1967. So this issue of closing a bank account for this and that, there are many ways to do it. We will establish a bank, a local bank that has no international correspondence, and we will relieve the banks. So we will use the post office bank. We will do it. We will pay cash money if needed. So this is not a solution. Just to attack these banks on legal basis and so on is not. The issue for us is that these prisoners should not be in jail. These prisoners should be released. They should be with their families. They should be this and that. Now, of course, if there is a peace agreement, everybody should be released. But what I'm telling you is that, look at it, this is a social allowance issue. We are taking care of kids. We are paying for their schools, health insurance. We are taking care of them instead of them becoming radicals. And then what if this and that happens and these people becomes getting some assistance from Iran and from Daesh and so on and so forth? Look at what is happening today. United States has decided to freeze every assistance to UNRWA, United Nations Relief and Work Agency of Refugees. There is one single Palestinian with Daesh now. One single Palestinian with Daesh or with Al-Qaeda. Tomorrow, if UNRWA is dismantled, God knows where these Palestinian refugees in Lebanon and Syria, God knows where they will go. So there are very serious security impacts of all these sort of measures. We know we are responsible people. And look, Yigal Amir, who assassinated Rabin, is he getting social allowance or not? Yes, he does. I'm telling you, he does. He does. Look at the person without any sort of resemblance between the two cases. The person in Norway who killed 71 people. He is on social pension with the Norwegian government. That's what a responsible government should do. It's not that you fight it to the end and then put the backs of the Palestinians to the wall. That is not how to do it. Today, there are cases against the Palestinian Banks, 110 cases against the Palestinian Authority in the Israeli courts, that this collaborator has been, arrested and this and that and so on and so forth. That is not the way to handle issues. The way to handle issues is to sit down on the table and negotiate a peace, and not to fight this and that and so on. On the contrary, we are actually containing these realities that has to do with the prisoners. If these banks are pushed out, then we don't want, it's a very transparent organization. It's a very transparent issue. Everybody knows, we know, it's it's in our accounts, we pay these, the Israelis know this well, the Israelis are deducting this money and now they are fighting the banks. But who is fighting the banks really? It's a Palestine Media Watch, it's an NGO, but based on a military order. And I think the Israeli security people recommended that this should not be the case. Okay. And I think they should not do it. They should reverse their decision because it is wrong. It doesn't help anybody.
Thank you, Doctor. We have quite a few questions lined up. Khaled Burr had a question about the viability of a two-state solution. Is it possible? Is a two-state solution still possible without the involvement of the United States?
Yes. Well, look, there is no solution. What we have done, what we have said, Khaled, is the following. Look, we know the American monopoly of the peace process has not been helpful. But we know without the United States, there is no solution. With the United States only, it's not possible. And without the United States is not possible. So what is in between these two formulas is the quartet. We did write letters to the quartet asking them to organize an international conference on the basis of international law and United Nations resolutions that has to do with Palestine in order for us to push the process forward. Now, we have seen the President Trump initiative. President Trump initiative does not take us forward at all. And I want to tell you, Khaled, that look, with all what the United States has given to Israel, what did actually Netanyahu give back? Literally nothing. United States has closed the Palestine office in Washington, stopped funding for the Palestinian Authority, stopped funding for UNRWA, moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, all these sort of measures. What did actually Washington get in return from Netanyahu? Literally nothing. This design is a total erosion of two states. The annexation is the last pillar, is the last nail in the coffin of two states. It is not going to be possible with this sort of, as I said earlier in my introductory remarks, that this sort of fragmentation of geography is going to be even more and more fragmented. That does not create a contiguous Palestinian geography to be a geographic base for a future Palestinian state. Where do we go from here? I think demography is a crucial factor. We have to look at demography seriously, and I hope that there is somebody who is with little wisdom in Israel might rise up and say, well, look, we are really shooting ourselves in the foot. This is something that we should not do. We will wait and see. Thursday is going to be a day of moment of truth. Thursday is going to be a day of moment for truth to the Palestinian leadership, whether we continue to be stuck with the status quo or continue to be blind of this reality, emerging reality, or we rise up to the occasion. And I think the Palestinian leadership with our president, we will rise to the occasion. And there will be serious decisions taken next Saturday.
Thank you, Doctor. Given that we have just 7 minutes left, I'm going to invoke some privilege here and ask two. I'm going to pose two questions from the list that we have. One is from Felicia Schwartz from the Wall Street Journal, and I'm going to put them both to you and then allow you to respond. She says, thanks very much for doing this, Prime Minister. What has the message been from the Saudis and other Gulf states on Israel's annexation push? Are they pressuring you to accept it? Can they pressure the US at all to stop it? And do you think they want to? The second question is, and I'm sorry to all those that I've had to skip, but just to sort of round out the conversation, this question is from Zaina Agha from Shabaka, and she asks, thank you for your time. I worry that we are moving away from the real question here. This weekend marks 72 years since the Nakba, and Palestinians remain displaced from their homes. Palestinians and allies worldwide are returning to anti-colonial principles of struggle. What do you say to those who argue that security coordination and the continuing presence of the PA in Palestinian political life prohibits the Palestinian struggle for full liberation and return?
Okay. Well, for the first question, Khaled, I think the Saudis made it very clear in a phone call between the King of Saudi Arabia and our president at the beginning of Ramadan. The King expressed his full support to the Palestinian rights of an independent, contiguous Palestinian state. United Arab Emirates, Sheikh Abdullah bin Zayed, the day before yesterday, spoke loudly for the first time since years, and he expressed his total rejection of this idea of annexation. And he did consider that is a total erosion of the two states and an end to the peace process. So Gulf countries, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, yesterday Emirates and so on, they were all really, Qatar, they were all very concerned that this is really not going to be the answer. And so therefore, in the last meeting of the Arab Ministers of Foreign Affairs, they were also solid in rejecting the annexation, as well as in rejecting the ultimate deal of Trump. It was explicit. Europeans are going to meet Friday, this coming Friday, in 3 days' time, and the only item on the agenda is the Palestine issue and annexation. And I think Europe is going to speak loud also and clear for total rejecting. And I think all of the 27 countries, this morning, Mr. Borrell told me that the 27 countries, they're totally opposing this annexation, and they are all in line with international law. So therefore, I think the Gulf countries are very explicit on their position. On the issue of Zaina, on Nakba and the Palestinian Authority and so on, look, this Palestinian Authority is not a gift from anybody. This Palestinian Authority is an outcome of the sacrifices of the Palestinian people. The Palestinian factions, all of them agreed on a tool for the struggle, which is popular passive resistance. And therefore, we are all for it. And anybody who wants to be part of it is more than welcome. Now, there are people who say, of course, that why do we need the authority? This authority should be dismantled. It should not. I say that, look, if the Israelis want to destroy it, let them destroy it. We will not surrender. The authority is an outcome of the sacrifices of our people. This interim authority should become a state. 140 countries have recognized Palestine as a state, and we should manifest the state on the ground, rather than really say, okay, to hell with it, let Israel do its responsibility as an occupation power or as a colonial power. That is there. But for us to say that the Palestinian Authority is actually stopping any resistance to occupation, that's not accurate. The door is open. There has been a Palestinian consensus on these issues, and I think we will continue on the same track. the authority was designed to be an interim authority. And I think that what Israel wants is to make this interim permanent, and we should not allow that. And I think the answer to Zena and to most of you, we have to watch Saturday. I count a lot on this meeting, and I hope that Israel doesn't go into this direction. If they do, we are going to take things into a totally different direction, i.e., I refer to agreements that has not been respected by the Israelis.
Do we have time for one more question? We have about 2 minutes, if that's possible. Nathan Brown has a question. He says, if I understand correctly, reconciliation efforts are on hold until the coronavirus crisis ends, and then the focus will be on reviving PA institutions and elections. Is there any prospect of reviving PLO structures in addition to the reviving the PA institutions?
Well, Nathan, it's good to hear from you. The door is not open for reconciliation. The door is not closed for reconciliation. We have two options. Either we really respect the signed agreements, and the last signed agreement was signed in 2017, October 12, 2017. We are ready as a government. I am ready to go to Gaza tomorrow and resume responsibility if Hamas allows us to really conduct our business there freely without any interference. This has not been the case. And that is why we said we will go into elections. We did propose elections. We sent messages to the Israelis because without East Jerusalem, we will not be able to conduct elections. Jerusalem is a crucial issue. Palestinians have participated, Palestinians of Jerusalem and in Jerusalem, participated in 1996, 2005, 2006 elections, and we will not give up on their right to participate in these elections. Now that Israel is out of its own elections, beyond, they are forming a government, we will come back to this issue again as a door for ending the split. That is the issue. The PLO, I am sure, I agree with you, it really needs serious reform to continue to function as a sole legitimate representative to the Palestinian people. But what I want from the PLO really is to take care of the Palestinians in refugee camps in diaspora. The PLO as a legitimate representative has to do with right of return to the Palestinian people. And I think that is where the crucial role of the PLO should be focused on. The BA, I think Palestinian Authority should change function. We cannot continue with the same function, an authority without an authority. We cannot continue to do that. And I think that we should take this authority into a totally different level of authority, so it becomes a state under occupation. Palestinian Authority should turn to become a state. 140 countries have recognized us to be a state, and we should act as a state. We should manifest this state on the ground. It's a great difficulty. I know it's easy to say, but that is the real challenge for us in the coming months to really take things in a totally different direction. That is where we are heading, and I count on you, on your support, on your understanding, and I hope that things will not be as ugly as expected with this new coalition government in Israel. Things are going to be really ugly if they are going to go into what they are planning for.
Thank you, Dr. Shtayyeh. We've already gone over our allotted time, and I want to be respectful of your time, given the very late hour there, and that you've given us already a very generous amount of your time. So I'm afraid, even though we have many more questions, and I'm sure we've only just scratched the surface, but I want to thank you on behalf of the Middle East Institute, and I know I speak for all of our participants when I say thank you for joining us. We greatly appreciate your insights, your candor, and your time. And I hope that we can have you again sometime, hopefully under better circumstances. and stay well and healthy, and our best to you and your family and to all those around you.
Thank you very much, Khaled, for having me and giving me this opportunity to speak to your wonderful participants. I'm happy to see most of friends on your screen. This sort of social distance, it keeps our minds together, our hearts together. My best wishes for those who are fasting for the coming Eid, and my best wishes for those who are fighting Corona. We are all united on this invisible enemy, and I'm sure humanity will win in the same way that Palestinian steadfastness will be solid, and our resilience will be even more and more with this new emerging reality on the ground. Thanks for having me. Thank you, Khaled. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
And thanks to all the friends who are with you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dr. Shtayyeh.
Thank you all for attending.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you.